State University, Dr. Ogutu, and the university leadership, Excellencies, honorable members present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I want to thank each and every one of you for finding time to participate in this inaugural conference on Africa Continental Free Trade Area and engage with the most important fundamental issues in terms of Africa's overdue economic transformation. We are at a historic juncture in world development in which Africa, at long last, is emerging as a focal point of important global strategic discourse with tremendous political, security, environmental, and most importantly, economic implications. Throughout the modern age, Africa has been profiled as a troubled continent which abounds with immense potential, limitless possibilities, but year after year, overcoming these challenges and actualizing potential has remained a very elusive target. Consequently, Africa has continued to rank unfavorably when it comes to participating, contributing, and competing in the global economic space relative to other regions. As Minister Miano has said, Africa only accounts for 3% of global trade because a stronger performance is prevented by disjointed and fragmented markets. Besides other structural deficiencies and historical legacies which undermine sound institutional development, impede efficiency, and limit the possibility of robust economic growth and transformation. Historically, the continent has been afflicted by colonial tyranny, economic exploitation, and political instability, which have hindered Africa's ability to participate fully in global trade and benefit from its own resources. Although politically sovereign, economically we have been trapped in a vicious cycle of underdevelopment and want, now compounded by a huge debt trap and a runaway climate crisis. The profile of Africa has been so pessimistic that its endowments were deliberately cast in despairing light. Africa's resources were portrayed as a curse that would only bring conflict and bloodshed instead of wealth and progress. Africa's growing youthful population was similarly represented as a ticking time bomb that would explode into intense poverty and endless fighting. Even Africa's forests and other resources were not spared. Despite an indeed very often, because of its abundant endowments, Africa has been persistently underrated, underrepresented, and relegated to the margins of economic discourse, while being at the center of negative political conversation. These conversations are changing, and I'm very happy that we are changing the narrative about Africa. And the narrative is changing because we have learned to tell our story as Africans. Much of the difficulty encountered by many countries arose from international economic and financial system configured to sustain a rigid development pathway. Consequently, resources typically flew in one direction, on the cheap, to the benefit of the powerful industrialized nations, which control the levers of the system today, while finished products are afterwards imported to these same countries in our continent at a price that make utter mockery of our endowments, our aspirations, and our progress. At the center of all discourse concerning Africa's relative underdevelopment and low economic performance in the midst of such staggering plenty is the question, why is a continent that is larger than all other continents and land masses combined, which is home to over 1 billion and a bit people, and sits at all these resources, contributing only 3% of global trade and only 2.8% of global GDP? That is the question we need to answer, and that is the question we've been working hard to answer, and this is the question we need Strathmore and the center that's going to be set up here to help us answer. As soon as one reflects upon this question, it becomes clear that there exists a connection between Africa's underperformance in absolute and comparative terms and the equally low levels of intra-Africa trade and investment. Let me give you examples. Between 1995 and 2017, intra-African trade grew from 10% to 17%. That is a period of 22 years. For perspective, consider that the next lowest region in regional trade is North America at 31%, then Asia at 59%, while Europe stands at 69, almost 70%. There lies the issue. We speak about EAC because, and that's what Michele here was referring to, we have tried to tear down the barriers to East African trade. And that is why today EAC, intra-EAC trade within the countries in EAC is at about 27%, the highest in the continent of Africa. But compared to where other regions are, you can see that we have so much ground to cover. The EU is a highly integrated market with a parliament, judiciary, and a single currency. And this unity is amply reflected by its GDP and levels of regional trade, investment, and integration. It has been clear for a while now that strengthening unity of African and deepening economic integration on a continental scale would confer on us tremendous opportunity and benefits on a scale commensurate with our stature, profile, needs, and aspirations. A decade ago, therefore, the African Union laid down the agenda to guide our endeavors to achieve this goal by 2063 through a development roadmap which envisions an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena. This agenda explicitly sets out the direct connection between Pan-African unity, economic development, and peace and security, at once exposing the fundamental economic drivers of our failures and fundamental economic vision as the engine of unprecedented African transformation. Today, Africa is beginning to hum with the energy unleashed by the unfolding of innumerable opportunities thanks to regional and Pan-African integration. Trading has commenced under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And even in these early stages, the potential to rapidly grow intra-African trade beyond earlier projections is very evident. Many firms are going back to the drawing board because the full implications of the huge scale of this platform are beginning to emerge. A seamless market of 1.4 billion people, launching off to a GDP of 3.4 trillion, is a tremendous start by all accounts. It is projected to increase incomes by at least 7% throughout our 54 countries by 2035, thereby lifting over 30 million people out of poverty. There is much optimism and excitement as we embark on a new chapter in Africa's economic journey. The launch of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area marks a significant milestone in our pursuit of economic transformation across our continent. The time for Africa's economic transformation and industrialization has come, and we must execute a transition from merely supplying world markets with raw commodities to broad spectrum of value-added contributions, including tradable services, as well as embracing the rapidly evolving digital technologies to accelerate economic growth and create employment opportunities for the continent's burgeoning youth population. The ACFTA, therefore, provides a crucial opportunity for Africa to define the terms and conditions under which we shall pursue African self-sufficiency with the aim of actualizing authentic African self-determination. Under the African Continental Free Trade Area, we have a chance to transform our continent into a global economic powerhouse and elevate the lives of millions of African citizens. It is projected that the AfCFTA could create 2 million additional jobs and lift a market of 1.4 billion people, as I said, and a combined GDP of US dollars 3.4 trillion, thereby creating unprecedented opportunities to accelerate economic growth and transformation, foster regional integration, and improve the lives of millions of Africans. We must see the Africa Continental Free Trade Area as more than just an economic integration initiative and a trade agenda. It is also a powerful symbol of Africa's unity and determination to chart its own path towards prosperity, and represents a revolutionary paradigm shift in our approach to development, where innovation, collaboration, and cooperation takes center stage. It signifies our commitment to breaking down borders, bridging divides, and mobilizing the nations and people of Africa to aspire collectively and strive in unity towards a shared destiny. By eliminating trade barriers, boosting intra-Africa trade, and promoting investment, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area establishes a conducive environment for commerce and industry to thrive, unleash the entrepreneurial spirit of our people, and stimulate economic diversification and industrialization. It will enable African countries to capitalize on their comparative advantages and establish regional value chains essential for sustained economic development. The AfCFTA is driving the emergence and definition of fresh global perspectives of Africa as a unified socio-political and economic entity. And as a result, everybody from statesmen and diplomats to investors and entrepreneurs are beginning to normalize a Pan-African track in their strategies, which shifts the scale and horizon to undertaking a new paradigm. Today, after this meeting, in fact, in a few minutes, I will be meeting the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, who is in Kenya because, in their own words, they are revising their strategy for Africa. Because they now see exactly what I'm talking about. The reverberations of AfCFTA are intense and have caused walls, barriers, and obstacles to collapse and give way to bridges, ladders, and pathways to opportunity to reverse the current trends in poverty, inequality, and underdevelopment in our continent. And this is why this summit in Strathmore is important, because we want to bring on board the intellectual capacities that we have, the space around trade, and the leverage we can get from technology to come into play so that we can leapfrog some of the challenges others have had and be able to tap into the space that exists, turn our potential into opportunity, and opportunity into tangible benefits for our continent. With a median age of 19, Africa is the youngest continent that is growing younger every year. Millions of educated and purposeful young people stand in need of meaningful employment. A life of poverty in the midst of all the evident untapped potential is totally unacceptable for these young people. AfCFTA gives us the opportunity to transform Africa's youth bulge from a ticking time bomb to a generational asset and a demographic dividend. African countries have natural resources that are typically extracted and exported as raw materials for production abroad. Africa also has abundant renewable energy resources that are clean and green. We are literally the zero carbon factory of the world in waiting. We are not just waiting, but preparing eagerly for the opportunities to employ our youth, attract investment, grow manufacturing industrialization potential, and power the next phase of global green industrialization revolution. Even as our governments, corporations, and individual entrepreneurs engage with the tremendous opportunities arising out of our continent's vast potential, it is important for forums like this to lead the way in continuously developing, refining, and providing high-quality, evidence-based, data-driven analysis, strategies, policies, as well as other varieties of essential knowledge and insights that enable both public and private sector leaderships to make smart choices and take sound decisions in order to initiate and sustain ambitious transformation on a continental scale. You occupy a very special place in making us succeed. And I agree with Minister Miano that the body of knowledge and expertise that we have in our universities, starting with Strathmore, could close the gaps that we have much faster, much more efficiently, if we created the correct networks and worked with our institutions seamlessly. In other words, we are not going to take chances with this unprecedented moment in the history of global development. Rather, we are investing in and supporting the development of relevant strategic, analytical, and advisory bandwidth to make sure that our public and private sectors enjoy sustainable access to the best intellectual capacity and resources available as they formulate policies, strategies, and set out to succeed in a brave world that we all want to be part of. This is how I contextualize the launch of the AFCTA Policy and Development Center here in Strathmore, which signifies Kenya's readiness to support Africa's transformation through robust complementary activity in the academic and scholarly space. While the role of such an institution is fairly straightforward, its critical importance will continue to manifest itself as Africa coheres into a fully fledged political and economic global player of strategic significance. So it may start small, as it certainly will, but I am very confident that further down the road, its space, its capabilities will be evident. It is good to start early. I know maybe we are asking ourselves whether we've started, we've not done the correct homework, maybe we've not done things as we should. But let me encourage you and tell you this. It is good to start early. Wole Soyinka, our foremost African elder, admonishes us that you must set forth at dawn. And our young people here in Kenya paraphrase it to say, mapema ndio best. So, even as we behold the magnitude of Pan-African integration, we must also undertake domestic transformation, not only to drive rapid economic growth, but also to create sustainable local capacity to exploit every emerging opportunity at the national, regional, or continental levels. So you're in the right space. I just want to encourage Vice Chancellor here and the university. And I also want to persuade you, therefore, that our bottom-up economic transformation agenda is both a coherent, standalone, self-sufficient plan for unlocking opportunities in Kenya to drive unprecedented economic development, and also a mechanism to enhance our national capacity to participate meaningfully in Pan-African investment, commerce, trade, and also in the industrial space. We want to be ready to work, invest, manufacture, and trade at every level, in every sector throughout our continent. We understand Pan-African integration in the form of AFCTA and the Agenda 2063 as a perfectly aligned extension of our bottom-up economic transformation agenda, and that is why we are involved in it, we are immersed in it, and Secretary General will confirm that Kenya is front and center driving this African integration agenda. Early this year, in February, during the Ordinary Assembly of Heads of State and Government, we adopted accelerating the implementation of Africa Continental Free Trade Area as the overarching theme for this year. I am delighted by the great momentum to rally and establish key institutions that will enhance the implementation of this program. It is also encouraging to learn that an important facility, the ACFTA Adjustment Fund Corporation, has already been launched and is domiciled in Kigali, Rwanda. And here today, we are launching one of the most critical institutions that will significantly catalyze the implementation of AFCTA, the AFCTA Policy and Development Center here in Strathmore. We recognize the importance of policy development in driving the success of Africa Continental Free Trade Area. It is also through strategic, well-crafted policies that we can create an enabling environment for business to thrive, facilitate investment flows, and promote fair and equitable trade practices. The role of the Center will be instrumental in this regard, providing a platform for research, analysis, and evidence-based policy making. We intend to tap into this resource, not just as Kenya, but as EAC and as the wider body of the African continent. As we embark on this journey, it is essential to acknowledge and keenly examine and attend to the challenges that lie ahead. To begin with, we must tackle issues related to infrastructure development, regulatory harmonization, human capital development, and the facilitation of cross-border trade. According to the African Development Bank, Africa needs to invest between $130 and $170 billion annually in infrastructure for the next decade. This center will need to figure out how this is going to happen, what levers we need to use, what instruments will come into play so that we can attain these targets. The AFCTA will serve as a catalyst for these investments, since improved transport, energy, and digital connectivity will significantly reduce trade costs and naturally enhance efficiency. To support this agenda, I see a major role for the Policy and Development Center here in Strathmore in terms of designing sustainable investment models and public-private sector arrangements that effectively mobilize stakeholders, governments, and regional economic communities to develop effective policies that drive inclusive and sustainable development in the whole space that we are seized with. Secondly, it is essential for us to sustain skills and development and promote continuous learning as a strategic priority throughout Africa. Africa's youthful population is projected to increase exponentially to 1.7 billion in the next 7 years and 3 billion by 2063. I am convinced, beyond any doubt, that the youth are the future and our greatest asset. By investing in education, vocational training, and research and development, we can unlock the innovative potential of our youth, equip them with the necessary skills for the future, and keep them at the forefront of Africa's economic transformation. I am very sure that universities, starting with Strathmore, are doing exactly that. And I am saying so not from hearing. I am saying so because 2 members of my family have actually been through this university. So I am speaking from knowledge, and I'm speaking from experience. And so that's what must happen continuously with all our other universities. Furthermore, it is imperative that we foster a categorically pro-business environment characterized by transparent, unpredictable regulations, robust legal frameworks, and protection of intellectual property rights. This will attract foreign direct investment, encourage local entrepreneurship, incubate innovation, and promote responsible business practices that create quality jobs and contribute to sustainable development. And I am completely aligned with what the Secretary General of SCFTA mentioned on two issues. The easing of trade, especially on payment of goods and services in our continent. How do we marry the efficiency of our trade with which happens in different currencies? And in the Africa Heads of State Assembly in February next year, we will be adopting the Pan-African payment system that has been crafted by Afrexim Bank as the instrument that is going to allow this continent to trade in our local currencies and avoid the unnecessary loss of about 5 billion shillings in trying to transact in different currencies. So we are properly aligned. In fact, Kenya is a champion, and we've been asked to host the headquarters of the Pan-African payment system in Kenya. And because we are leaders in the technology space, and because we are also promoters of African Continental Free Trade Area, and any institution that supports the integration of our continent, we have gladly accepted to host the headquarters of the Pan-African payment system in Kenya. Let me also confirm that technology is going to play a very important role. And that is why I agree that the ministers are going to conclude on making sure that we bring legislation, we bring regulation, and we agree on how technology is going to support our trade capabilities and possibilities. And as a result, the whole tech space is a space that we must pay very special attention. And it is the reason why I traveled to America, to the Silicon Valley, with the assistance of my good sister Meg, so that we can speak the language of technology to the leading companies globally. It is the reason today the chair of iLab here says Apple is looking at opportunities in Kenya. They have never imagined that they can look for opportunities in Kenya. But because of the profile we have created, because of the pitching that we have made, and because even them, they can now begin to see opportunities in Africa, because that's where the future is. We are now beginning to leverage on interests in our continent. I want to confirm that Kenya is already aligned in terms of data centers. We've already committed 1,000 acres in Naivasha for the development of data centers with green energy, because we believe that this is a service that we do not need it just for Kenya. We need it also for the region, and this is one export we can also export globally. This is one export we can export to America, you know, and we can balance our trade, and we can export to Europe. And that's a space that we intend to take charge and make sure that we deliver on it. And so technology is going to play a big role, making sure that our business people are not unnecessarily encumbered by looking for this currency and that currency to be able to trade. We will try and see whether we can take that out of the equation so that they can concentrate on enhancing trade between all our countries. So we are properly aligned. We are, Kenya is in the right space for us to be able to move this forward. And I want to ask all our institutions to work with us in building the institutions that will support our progress, that will support our development nationally, regionally, and globally, because we need the input of everybody. I believe that the launch of the Africa Continental Trade Area Policy and Development Center represents a pivotal moment in Africa's development journey. It provides a platform for us to work together in a borderless, cross-sectoral, multidisciplinary, and inclusive manner to build a prosperous future in which Africa is a globally competitive driver of world economic affairs. And I welcome all of us to put forward your best ideas, your best perspectives, your best insights in making sure that this works, not just for Strathmore, but not just for Kenya, but ultimately for our continent and for the world. So again, I want to say thank you very much for welcoming me to speak on this subject, which is very dear to me, which I am very passionate about. And I am truly encouraged that we are going to have this center in Strathmore as we build the institutions that will support our thrust and push as we develop our continent and as we get Africa to play its rightful role, which has been long in coming. But I think we are finally there. So asanteni sana, thank you very much, and God bless you.